In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 surprising ways that you can prepare for life here in Italy. Beginning with number 1, which is to start reading books, but not just any kind of book. And certainly not any books to do with life here in Italy. You are going to want to start reading personal development books. And I have a couple of recommendations to share with you in today's video. The first being Atomic Habits by James Clear, an absolute classic, which I read a couple of years ago, and I've never ever forgotten what I've read. And the second being Let Them by Mel Robbins, the book I have just finished reading, and I highly recommend it. Now, these 2 books on the surface have absolutely nothing to do with life in Italy, but the principles and lessons that they teach you can easily apply to the process of both moving here and settling into your new life here. Let me explain. Atomic Habits by James Clear. There are 2 key things from this book that I think can really help you. The first is the 1% principle, and the second is habit stacking. So let's begin by talking about the 1% principle. The 1% principle is that it is the small incremental actions that you take towards a specific goal or objective that over time stack up and lead to greater results and outcomes. I think too often in life we focus on the big stuff and we fail to sweat the small stuff. We fail to focus on the small, minute actions because we don't think they're going to take us to where it is that we want to go. But actually, it is those small actions that tend to lead us to far better outcomes than the big, grand actions ever do. Now, when it comes to moving to Italy, this is where I think this principle can really help you, because the whole process of moving to Italy can seem really overwhelming. There is so much to think about, so many things that you are going to have to prepare for, that sometimes you just don't know where to begin. And by breaking down those seemingly momentous tasks into smaller, manageable, bite-sized chunks, you can start to adopt this 1% principle, and then you can start to take the little actions every single day, which are ultimately going to lead you to your overall objective, which is to move to Italy. This is definitely going to take the overwhelm out of the entire process, and it's going to help you to feel a bit more in control as well. Now, there are plenty of other ways that the 1% principle can help you when it comes to your life here in Italy, especially when it comes to language learning. And this is when the 1% principle goes really nicely hand in hand with the second principle, which is habit stacking. Now, habit stacking is something where you attach a new habit to an existing habit that you already have in your life. Because one of the hardest things about starting a new habit is consistency, is actually following through on taking the action and the things that you need to do in relation to that new habit. But you see, when you attach it to something that is already a natural part of your everyday life, you are more likely to follow through and stick to it than you are if you try to carve out a separate section of time to be able to do that new habit. Now, where I'm thinking this can help you is when it comes to language learning, because yes, you are going to have to start learning Italian before you move here to Italy. And even when you are living here in Italy, it should be something that you include in your day-to-day life. But it's difficult to find time for language learning. It's the number one excuse I hear from my English students, that it's hard for them to find time. By adopting this habit stacking action, though, you are more likely to find the time to do it because you already have time for your existing habit. This is just something else that you've attached to it. So an example of this could be that maybe every single morning without fail, you have a cup of coffee and you eat breakfast. Well, maybe tomorrow morning, the next time you have that cup of coffee and eat breakfast, you also watch a video in Italian for 15 minutes, or you do some exercises in Italian. This is an example of how habit stacking can work. And because you are not having to do anything different, you're not having to find 1 hour in your day, which, let's face it, is probably never going to happen, you are more likely to make that happen. And here's the magic. This is where it ties back into the 1% principle, because by developing this habit stacking routine, you are going to become consistent. And do you remember what we spoke about with that 1% principle? It is those small, consistent actions that lead you to greater outcomes. So essentially, if you are able to start committing to 10 or 15 minutes every day, attaching this habit of learning Italian to an existing one, well, by the end of the week, you're going to start to make real progress. And then by the end of a month and by the end of 6 months, you're going to be in a far different place than you were when you first started. So Atomic Habits is an amazing book, but I definitely think it can help you when it comes to preparing for life here in Italy. Now, the second book, Let Them by Mel Robbins, can help you more when it comes to interpersonal connections with people. Now, this is twofold. Firstly, it's going to help you with your connections and forming them in the first place, because I don't think it's easy to make connections here in Italy, especially if you don't know anyone, especially if you're not even working here and, you are just meeting people in the shops or trying to find expat communities. It's not simple to form connections here. There is a science and a logic behind it, I think, sometimes. And so adopting this let them principle is going to help you to take more personal responsibility for the things that are within your control. So it's going to help you to realize that, you are going to have to let people be as they are with you, but you can take control and you can make an effort and you can push yourself out of your comfort zone and you can strike up conversations first and you can do your best to learn the language so that you can have those kind of conversations and chats in the first place. This really focuses you on what is within your control, and it helps you to stop blaming external circumstances for the reason why your life looks a particular way. Now, the other aspect that it can help you with is when it comes to other people's opinions, either about your move to Italy or about your life here in Italy itself, because there is something about moving to Italy that suddenly makes people get on their high horse and become very opinionated and judgmental. And this principle is really, really going to help you to be like, well, let them. It doesn't matter what other people have to say, let me, and focus on the things that are within my control, my reactions, my responses, and the way that I conduct myself. This book is amazing, and it has definitely transformed the way that I view the connections that I have with people here and the connections I will continue to have with people in the future. So these two books are examples of personal development books that you can easily relate to preparing for life here in Italy. And if you want some more recommendations, then go ahead and watch this video up here. I recorded it a couple of years ago, but the book recommendations are still super valid today. Number 2, you're going to want to only follow people on social media who actually live in Italy. Controversial, but very true. Let me explain. I don't mince my words on this channel. I tell it to you how it is. And this is why I think it can be very dangerous just to follow people who only post pictures of holidays they've had here in Italy in the past, or general dreamy romantic images of Italy because it's a country they're obsessed with. This is not going to help you if you plan to live here, because trust me, Italy does not look like that 365 days of the year, and depending on what part of Italy you move to, you might have a very challenging experience ahead of you. So this is where it helps to really focus in on the people who are actually living here in Italy, in the hopes that at some point they're going to tell you what life can be like here and the challenges and the trials and tribulations that they go through. I'm very transparent on my YouTube channel and also on my Instagram about what it can be like to live here, and I know that I'm not the only person that can tell it to you how it is. So make a point of following people who are actually based here. If this is your dream to move here, it does not prepare you for life in any way, shape or form if you only follow the accounts that romanticize this country. It's beautiful for escapism, absolutely, but you are not looking for escapism. You are looking to set your life up here in Italy and to actually make a success of it. Trust me, following just those accounts is not going to help you. It's going to keep you in the fantasy bubble. And then when you move here and you realize that life doesn't really look like that for every single day of the week, you might start questioning your decision. And I really, really don't want you to do that. I truly believe that you can move to Italy and make a success of your life, but you have to come here with your eyes wide open. And there are just too many social media accounts that don't promote Italy in the right way. I'm not saying that we should be slating Italy. I'm not saying that we should be saying it's the worst country in the world, because clearly it isn't. And a lot of people forget sometimes that I'm still here nearly 7 years later. I would not still be here if I did not have a connection, a bond, a form of love for this country. So this is what I want to stress to you. You can have your eyes wide open about a place. You can also love it all at the same time. It is not an either or situation, but I do believe that if you only follow the accounts on social media, whether it be YouTube or Instagram, that love Italy and only talk about the amazing parts, you are viewing Italy as a tourist. But you can't be doing that, because life as a tourist here in Italy is very different to life as a resident, and that's the part you need to be clear on. Number 3, you're going to need to start rewiring your brain. And there are 3 parts to this, really. You want to be focusing on patience first and foremost, followed by being flexible, and then thirdly, by being present. So let's talk about focusing on patience. You are going to want to start practicing patience in every aspect of your life, in whatever country you may be living in at the moment. If you're already here in Italy, you want to start practicing patience, because your patience will be tested at different times living here in Italy. It might be tested by the bureaucracy, which I know I'm not the only one to say can be an absolute nightmare at times. It might be tested by the timeframes that people give you here for projects and work that needs to be done. You know, people here in Italy, especially in the south, can be very flexible with their timeframes. 1 week ends up turning into 3 weeks. So you've got to have a degree of patience. You also need to have a degree of patience when it comes to understanding about life here, understanding the intricacies of life, understanding your roles and responsibilities as a resident, for example. These all require different levels of patience. So the sooner that you can start practicing patience in your life at whatever stage of your journey you're at, the better it's going to be for you and the easier you are going to start adapting to life here in Italy. If you arrive here impatient, it's going to make your experience very, very difficult, because unfortunately your impatience is not going to make people suddenly hurry up here. So you really, really do need to start practicing this skill as soon as you can. Which leads nicely into being flexible. Now, you need to be flexible because life here in Italy isn't rigid, and I sometimes consider myself to be quite rigid. You know, I have certain boundaries, I have certain belief systems, I like things to be done a certain way, basically. I'm a double Virgo, which really doesn't help either. But that aside, life here in Italy, especially in the south, can be a bit more go with the flow. And if you're quite a rigid person, that can be difficult to adjust to. So you need to practice being flexible. Practice being in the moment a bit more, which ties into the third point about being present, but also practice like getting used to spontaneity, getting used to plans being finalized at the last minute rather than 3 months in advance, getting used to like the way of life, like one evening suddenly feeling like doing something different out of the ordinary to what you normally do, or visiting a different part of Italy or going to a different restaurant, pushing the boat out in different ways. But you want to try and practice being as flexible as you can before you move here. It will help you to go with the ebbs and flows of life here in Italy and to go with the flow, because it is difficult to live here sometimes if you're very fixed in your opinions, viewpoints, or way of life. Having that degree of flexibility just helps you to weather the storms a little bit when you encounter them, but also to embrace and enjoy life here, because essentially it is that flowing freedom that can help you to really experience the heart and soul of this country. Which leads into the third point, which is about being present. So much of life here is spent in the moment. People will talk about the future, but I don't come across many people who will tell me what their 5-year goals are. People just don't have that kind of mindset here in South Italy. People have an idea of what they want to do, but often they play it by ear and they really approach life in small chunks of time rather than in big leaps. Now, whether or not you agree with that is a very personal thing. I do like to have future objectives, because I think otherwise my fear is that my life will continue to look the same 6 or 7 years from now. But I do also appreciate how being in the moment relaxes you and calms you down. And honestly, if I'm in a state of anxiety, which at points I can be, it is those moments of being present that really help to ground me. So there is a lot of beauty in this philosophy, but if it doesn't come naturally to you and it's not something that you're used to doing, you need to start practicing this as soon as you can. Practice just being present in your space wherever you're at. Go out in nature, sit, just observe, watch, don't think about anything, don't go on your phone, just take in what is around you, take in your surroundings. This principle will definitely help you to approach life in a much more calm way, and also help you to appreciate things here more as well, because you are really observing and acknowledging what is going on around you. And this is a really, really important thing. Number 4, you're going to want to start learning what food is seasonal in this part of the world. Now, the reason why this is important is because your diet is going to change radically when you move to Italy, no doubt, and I have no doubt it will be for the better. But one thing that you will start to notice, especially when it comes to fresh fruit and vegetables, they are very, very seasonal. So whilst you can still find imported fruit and vegetables, if you go to the open markets, you will find that they only stock fresh seasonal produce. And so it helps if you already come here with an understanding of what is in season at different times of the year, so that you can benefit from the freshness of those ingredients in your cooking. Your diet will thank you for just how wonderful it's going to become when you're using fresh seasonal ingredients and you really start to appreciate your food in that way. I come from the UK where you can have any type of fruit or vegetable really at any time of the year. And I have to be honest, I didn't really used to appreciate fruit and vegetables in the same way that I do now when I realise that certain fruit and vegetables are at their peak at certain times of the year and taste so much better as a result. So start to do your homework and start to learn about when is the best time of year to eat particular fruit and vegetables, and learn to incorporate that into your cooking and into your diet. And then the fifth thing, also connected to food, is that you're going to want to turn away from processed food and more towards fresh food. Now, if you come from a country where your diet is full of ready meals or processed jars and sauces, then you want to start gradually weaning yourself off that type of food and leaning more into fresh produce, leaning more into cooking, leaning more into using fresh ingredients. This can be easy for some people and difficult for others, which is why I think the sooner you can start to make this shift in your life, the easier it will become for you and you actually start living here in Italy, because you're not going to be craving certain food types that you used to eat back in your country. You're already going to have adjusted to eating a healthier diet and using more fresh, locally sourced ingredients. So I really think this can be a positive switch. I definitely feel like now my diet is the healthiest it has ever been in my entire life. I hardly eat any junk food and I feel so much better for it. But you see, somebody who has maybe an addiction to junk food or really eats it quite a bit in their everyday life, it might take them a bit longer to arrive at the point that I'm at now, which is why the sooner you can start this, the better. Really start to focus more on eating healthier, eating fresh food, ingredients, trying to cook as much as possible rather than relying on ready meals, because they are not really something that you will find here in Italy. And not only, I think, will you feel better, but also your life will feel better when you start living here and you really are already used to this and it's already a routine in your everyday life. So I hope that these 5 surprising things have helped you in terms of preparing for your life here in Italy. If you've enjoyed this video, this is the video I want you to watch next, because I also think this is going to open your eyes a little bit more about what life can be like here. I'll see you in the next video.